All right, we're live. We
Yay.
made
Yes.
it. So we're somehow managed to be able to have our podcast stay on the fourth Tuesday of every month. I don't know how, Joe, you and I have schedules that are allowing this to continue to happen, but I'm super excited about it.
I am too. It's just an act of Holy Spirit up there, just letting us get, these podcasts going. So,
Yeah, that might be the case. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Megan.
and I'm Joe Smith.
And we are here with our live recording of the podcast. For today's topic, we're kind of just doing a random assortment of things. And Joe, I didn't tell you about this one on the text message because I needed to surprise you with it. But the first thing we need to do is celebrate the Ohio State University being national champions and beating out the other Big Ten teams. Penn State thought they had a chance, but they didn't. So can I get an OH? You're supposed to say IO.
So it's all right. No, that's awesome. And you had your year. Next year's are my year for Penn State. We got your defense
I,
coordinator now, so
well, that's good. That's always
yeah.
helpful. I couldn't believe I hadn't really watched Notre Dame play this year, and I first of all I love their coach, but of course he's an Ohio State alum, so of course I'm gonna love him. Their quarterback was so good.
Yeah.
I was like, we're probably gonna struggle here, but they did it. They pulled it off. It was amazing, even
They
after
pulled it
losing
off.
to Michigan.
They pulled it off. They pulled it off. I called Michigan, like Michigan and Ohio State. That's a game that you can never go in as like, all right, Ohio's gonna win like every year. I mean, like you just can't do it because they're a rivalry. And even though Michigan could lose all their other games, like you can't go into that game knowing for certain that Ohio State's gonna beat Michigan just because they're rivals and they have that just like absolute hate for each other.
I
They
know.
respect each other, but they hate each other.
Yeah, well, there wasn't much respect at the end of the game when Michigan planted the flag and they got in a fight,
Oh yeah,
but that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Leslie knows one of my favorite football players, Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. He did that to us, but we didn't get in a fight. I don't think we
Oh,
did.
I
I
didn't
don't
know
remember
that.
there being a
I
fight
didn't
that
know
time.
that Baker Mayfield did that.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so that's our first thing. The other topic that we had, and we have a few folks on live from the collective. So Leslie, Nicole, Alex, if you want to chime in the chat or the microphone, um, we these are the things that Joe and I talked about. I want to pick a mascot for Do Better this year, so I thought we could discuss that a little bit. We also wanted to see what are some of the current like pain points that folks are experiencing in the field, like what are the problems you're facing. And then Joe also suggested parenting and ABA, like being a parent and a behavior analyst, like what's that like? So, does anyone have a preference for which one we talk about first?
I want the mascot. I think that'd be cool to talk about.
Okay, you want the mascot?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. So I of course use ChatGPT to give me some ideas and I put in, it has info about Do Better and me and all of that kind of stuff. And it made some good suggestions. I liked the suggestions, but I don't know why, for some reason, I've been really connected to the animal ever since I went to a retreat here just locally, like a half day retreat, and I pulled a card from the tarot deck and it was a mountain goat. And the description for the mountain goat, like steadily climbing up the side of the mountain and overcoming obstacles and continuing to persist and all of that kind of stuff, that was really spoke to me. So currently I'm thinking mountain goat. And we would make like a little fun cartoon. I have one I made on Canva. I'll pull it up real quick and see, but I don't know. I have no idea how to design anything ever. So I'm not really sure what I'm doing, um, but I wanted to see what you all think. And if you have a name idea, or if you would suggest a different mascot, but I just think we really need something, to help just make it a little bit more fun and like noticeable about Do Better. So what do you all think of the goat?
I kind of like the code. I like the idea that, is that consistent like push and trying to make it over the mountain and overcoming obstacles. I like that. That's really cool. That's a really, really good suggestion coming right out of the gate. I'm actually going through GPT and just seeing um, what they give me too. And it's interesting. Like
That's the
I
little
could,
Canva goat right now, but I don't know. I'm gonna play
oh,
around.
that's
That's the
cute.
one that Canva gave me.
That's cute. Um, and of course, like I haven't put much into chat GPT or information about the Do Better Pod. Their their ideas is a sapling or tree, a butterfly, a bee, a compass or lantern, a star or shooting star.
Those all seem boring to me.
What?
But those all seem boring to me. I don't know why. No,
Oh no,
we've
they
done
do.
the
They do.
sapling like tree idea. We did that with couch to camp, and I did like that when we focused on that. But I want something that can be like animated and fun. Again, I have no idea how to do it. Like I'm hoping I haven't looked at Apple's new like playground that they have to make Bitmojis and stuff, but I'm wondering if it's only a person or if you can create a character and then I can do all sorts of stuff with it. I don't know. That's where I am. Nicole suggested the name could be spelled Dobe, so like part of do better, but it would be pronounced Dobie, Dobie the goat, or
Joby
whatever else
from
we come up with.
Harry Potter. Joby. Is, isn't that the elf's name? Like from Harry Potter, that Joby?
I have no idea. I don't watch Harry Potter. Is that the elf's name?
I love, yeah, I love. Okay. Sorry, my wife and I are on this trend right now with Harry Potter. We're playing together Hogwarts Legacy, and we're just like really into the game, and we're like just being fanatics with like just the little things that we pick up like while we're gaming. Um, but yeah, I like that. I like the name Dobie too.
Okay. The other suggestions from ChatGPT, and then we'll move on to more important topics, was like an owl. Um, I honestly don't remember. I think OWL was the main one because it's an online learning community. So, like intellectual wisdom, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know why that didn't really speak to me. And I mean, I could look back at the chat to see what it was, but definitely anyone have objections to the goat? Don't worry. I know I'm super excited, but I won't take offense.
I don't have any objections. Every time I think of like like I love the idea of an eagle, but then that's kind of like overdone and overused and as a mascot.
Yeah, Eagles are hard for me. I know that's probably going to sound weird, but it's a little too American.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't feel that strongly connected.
Um,
Alex said, I like the goat, willing to take the difficult path.
a penguin,
Penguin.
a
Okay, so
penguin.
this is what ChatGPT said: owl for wisdom, learning, and thoughtful reflection. Fox for cleverness, adaptability, and quick thinking. But there's foxy learning already, so I don't want to, do anything with
Yeah.
that. Otter for playfulness, collaboration, and nurturing. I think an otter would be cute too. Hummingbird for resilience, energy, and ability. But I have a friend who has an ABA company that's like hummingbird, and again, I don't want to.
Mhm.
And then octopus for intelligent and resourceful, which technically with like the nickname I get of like queen, resource queen, maybe octopus would fit, but I don't know, it just feels weird. I don't know.
I also got wolf, a pack animal symbolizing teamwork and the strength of collective action.
Ooh, that's a good one. We might have a whole forest of creatures at some point just to symbolize all the various aspects of do better.
I love that.
I think since you have trailblazer, you need something that like aligns with that and that, goats take their trails. I mean, I like an owl
Yeah.
too. I think if you kind of stay on brand with the trailblazer, you pick a trail-ish animal.
Yes, that is
Ooh,
an excellent point. I like
uh,
that.
a Nittany lion.
No. If I'm gonna do a school mascot, it's obviously gonna be Brutus. And then everyone will be like, what is this? Like they always say about Ohio State. But all right, Nicole also says the goat is best so far. All right, cool. So I'm not on the wrong track there, it seems. And we'll move into more important topics now. Alex chimed in about wanting to do the parenting in ABA. So, mom of a 3-year-old and 9-month-old. That sounds busy, Alex. Trying to figure out how to navigate applying my knowledge, experience, and values across both jobs of behavior analyst and mom. So, Joe, this was your suggestion. Do you want to say any of your initial thoughts on it?
I do, but give me 1 second because my dogs need out.
Okay. Joe is both a pet parent and a human parent. So if it's not one, it's the other. That's great. So, Leslie or Nicole or Alex, do you all have anything you want to chime in with while Joe is letting his dogs out?
I mean, there's so much to cover, parent. I mean, parenting with littles. I have the spectrum of parenting. Parenting a special needs child. I
And you're
mean,
soon, or are you talking about what your new
yes,
milestone is going
grandparenthood is on my horizon. So yeah.
to be? Leslie will have whole new insights for us as a grandparent. I'm curious to see what the difference will be, how that like comes up for you. If there's like more of a tendency to reinforce things and do things that you would have maybe not done with your own kids.
Oh, 1,000%. I'll be totally, I know so much more. The good thing is my daughter's a pediatrician and she already is like does a lot of what you would think behavior analytic. She already does so much of that with her husband's niece and nephew and stuff. So like she's going to be amazing. But yeah, I will know so much more. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that'll be exciting. All right, Joe, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. It never fails. Every time I get on the microphone, he comes over, shakes, like whines, and he wants to be left out and he wants off. Of course, they're like not little, they're like 100-pound dogs, like so they'll knock down the gate or something to get in. But I find it interesting, like just being a parent and being a behavior analyst, but also just trying to be a parent. Like there's sometimes like I had to realize like when to turn off the ABA brain and just be a dad. And there's times that like, okay, no, let's think about this. What would be the best way I can handle this situation and utilize my behavior analytic skills. But it's also interesting, like whenever something comes up, I'm like, oh, we could do this, we can reinforce this. And my wife's like, wait, you're dad, like you're not behavior analyst right now. Like so I had to learn sometimes like I need to shut that part off and just have kind of like a dialogue and like just follow my wife's lead sometimes. So, but yeah.
I'm curious, if you don't have to share an example, but do you have an example where your wife's lead would be different than what you were trying to do that comes up for you?
Uh, Um, Probably the one thing would be at night, like at night, my kids' ADHD medicine, they're like it's wiped out of their system. They're hungry because it suppresses their appetite. So I'm more giving as far as like, hey, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this food? Can I have this? And like for me, I would just honor all those requests because they're making a request for food and like, hey, they're hungry. I understand that. But like I know my wife would be like, no, we're gonna shut it off at 8 o'clock. That's it. Like no more food. Because and I don't care if they're hungry or anything because like they're just trying to stall to go to bed.
Mm,
So
that
that's where
classic battle.
yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, but at the same time, I want them to, make sure, like, we're trying to make sure that they're healthy and they get the calories they need, because they're skinny. Like, both of them are very skinny. My middle child, um, we're worried about his height because he's not growing as much. So that's where, like, okay, I just want calories in him too,
Yeah.
throughout the day. So yeah, that's where like we kind of like differ, but then we'll just sit down and talk about it and like, okay, let's just decide on what to do best.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts to share, but I'll wait and see if Leslie or Nicole I know you don't have to participate. It's not technically part of being on live, but do you have any thoughts you want to share?
So many. I mean, you could just have the offerings be healthy, nutritious, calorie dense, protein, high protein, like
Yeah,
kind of the no-brainer, right? But I mean, the science but behind that medication, and that's a
yeah,
real hunger pain, and particularly if they're failure to thrive or on the skinny end, that's like a medical concern. So I, I
yeah.
mean,
So what we have done is like also like after a certain time they get like, hey, fruit, yogurt, cheese. You can have one of those options, or you can have a shake, which we have. So. Um, and we do that and that works too. Um, Also sometimes like I like to like, they're downstairs, we're eating and it's like, this is nice. It's nice that we can all just sit and watch TV together and, just sit here together and instead of, having to worry about them being on the, not worry, but like them on the computer or on the gaming system. Um, so sometimes I'm like, you know what? Let's watch this and you know let's wait until there's a good point to like say, all right, time to let's go to bed, like we're all done. So
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, I made the mistake at different points when my kids were younger of doing the whole like, you can't possibly be hungry. We just ate whatever, however long ago or whatever you ate. But then I delved a lot into intuitive eating research and am pretty fluent in that and love that framework. And I want my kids to trust their body, that their body is giving them the signs that they are not hungry. And all of that framework suggests that like when you're a child, like that's when you're your best like eater because you eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full, like you listen to your body's cues, and it's like society over time that tells us to stop listening to our body's cues. And then we start having disordered eating and stuff like that. So once like I had that mind shift, I'm basically like, your body, when you're hungry. And if you're having a hard time identifying some feelings, let me help you walk you through labeling those things. Like this is hungry, this is tired, this is whatever.
yeah,
But then ultimately like really trusting them that like if they say they're hungry, they're hungry.
yeah,
So go ahead and eat. I don't care if you just ate an hour ago. And like we all know that we've had days where we feel like we have a tapeworm for whatever reason, you're just starving all day long. And
Hormones.
like kids are just little humans, so they have the same thing. And I think that's the other thing is I started asking myself, am I having a double standard for them than I would have for myself? I need to trust them that they're not like, they're not trying to get one over on me or whatever. Like they need what they need, and their needs are going to change every day.
yeah,
I love what both of you said. One of the things I was thinking about, Joe, it's funny how you were saying like take off your behavior analytic hat, and what you described as wanting to do is likely what a lot of behavior analysts wouldn't do. Like what your wife is suggesting is more in line with like the traditional training of a behavior analyst, like only focusing on, oh, they're just trying to delay bedtime. Like there's only one variable at play, as opposed to considering all of these other factors. So it is very behavior analytic for folks who have done the work that you're doing, Joe. But when you look at what we're trained on in most grad programs and supervision, it's usually a very simplistic, parsimonious answer of like, oh, it's just, what's the consequence? What are they getting out of it? Instead of looking at, okay, what are all of the variables that it could explain why my child is wanting to eat so much at night? And you're really doing that well. And I definitely get your wife's perspective as well, because like both things could be true, right? Like it could be that they're hungry because of the medicine and they're trying to delay bedtime. So how do you account for all of it? And I think, we kind of already discussed that, but I've had to do the same thing with Taylor where I'm flexible on it as needed, but trying to set that boundary of, hey, bud, at 8 o'clock, food window closes because we need to start getting ready for bed, just like I would do for myself. Like that is the standard I would keep for myself as well. Like I have a certain time where I try to make sure I eat before that time, but I'm also flexible. If I was busy doing something that like needed my attention or whatever, I sometimes will eat later than that. So trying to figure out, what that routine and boundary is. And with Taylor, sometimes I'll be offering him, so over the weekend, here's a perfect example. I'm offering him food. It's like 8 o'clock till 9:30, because over the weekend, we usually let him stay up a little later and we are at my parents'. So, he was working on something. He was building his airport and then he started playing, Roblox or whatever. And I kept, hey, do you want popcorn? Do you want pretzels? Every like 15, 20 minutes, I'm trying to offer him a snack and he wouldn't eat anything. Right. But I never said to him, I feel like I messed up because, you could argue he should know, but I never said like, hey, last chance, it's almost bedtime. If you really want to eat something, you need to let me know now. And finally at like 9:30, I was like, okay, it's time for bed. And he was like, I'm so hungry. I want pizza. What? Like, where is this coming from? I've been offering you food for 2 hours practically, and he only ate one piece of pizza at dinner. So for help him learn, his attention is way too focused on the play that he's doing, and he's not pausing and recognizing his hunger signal. So he does need to learn to do that. I don't want him to think he can just be distracted and not take care of himself. But I did not give him pizza. I told him he could have pretzels. Like he had one option. He could have some pretzels because he genuinely was hungry. I knew he had to be, right? And a lot of people would say, oh, well, he'll just learn his lesson, make him go to bed hungry. But again, I wouldn't do that to myself. If I didn't eat because I was distracted by something, I would definitely still put something in my belly before bed. So I'm not going to hold him to a standard, just like Nicole said, that I wouldn't follow for myself. So I think it's all contextual, right? Like really, looking at trying to have boundaries in place of like when the food ends, making sure the food they do get is high calorie, like good protein, like helping to make up for the fact that they weren't that hungry during the day when their medicine was in place. And then, but being flexible after 8, if you're like looking and analyzing the variables and going, yeah, they probably do still need something to eat, and trusting that, But if on the other hand, like Nicole, I'm curious what you do if you have a inkling that they are trying to just delay bedtime and they're really not hungry.
I'm the worst person to ask this question to because my kids don't have a bedtime.
Oh, well, there you go.
Their bedtime is when they're tired and they go to bed. Their expectation is like they have to get up at a certain time the next day. And if they're really tired because they didn't go to bed early enough, then they're going to probably go to bed earlier the next day.
Yeah. I love that. I wish I could do that with Taylor, but he has so much energy, and I'm the same way. Like I can't if I'm like too active and alert, I can't shut myself down and I can't sleep. And then I have many, many bad nights of sleep. And as an adult, I generally know how to manage it, but not. So for him, it's like, if I just let him, he would be a hot mess too much. Like it wouldn't be beneficial for him at all. But I love that idea that, that they can learn, especially because that's going to carry over into adulthood. You would think that they know how to better manage their sleep.
Now, my kids are older. They're almost 13 and almost 15. I will say my daughter has always been pretty good about picking a reasonable bedtime and getting up earlier. My son, when we're off schedule, has been known to turn himself into a complete night owl and be like going to bed when my husband's leaving for work in the morning and then sleeping all day. And then we have to like get him out of that. But the last like over winter break, he managed to like stay on like a pretty normal schedule. So I will encourage going to bed by 11, but I'm not awake at 11 to make sure that that's happening. So I can usually tell by how he presents the next day when it's time for school if he's gotten enough sleep. But we also homeschool, so we have flexibility. We have a very flexible household, but we can do that in the environment that we're in. So
yeah, that's really nice that you have that option. Leslie or Joe, do you have thoughts? Like, what would you do? Because we have a hypothesis, right? Like we can look back at, okay, they ate this much or that much. And like, generally speaking, they probably aren't hungry. But as Nicole stated, some of us have days where we're just eating like crazy, probably because of whatever hormones are in our bodies and different, aspects of that, and especially for children because there's growing periods and things too. So what would you do?
I mean, we've never restricted food. Like I know I have family members where their kids can't go in the pantry and just get a snack. My kids can eat whenever, whatever they want. I mean, they know dinner's, well, I only have one kid at home, but he knows like dinner is at this proximate time. Um, he's 17, full hormones. He's been at school all day. It doesn't matter if he has a bag of crackers or chips or pretzels 15 minutes before dinner. He's still going to eat everything I give him. So, I mean, that has to be adjusted for the kids you have, and I mean, I have like, I think more contingencies in place with him because he does have autism. And we did food therapy when he was 5. So food's a tricky thing for me anyway, with all of that history. But he eats 90% of everything. He honestly eats more than my typical older son did at the same age. And he is about 6 foot, 140 pounds. Like all his medical metrics are fine. So he can eat whatever. I am kind of on the pendulum of like, we don't even have a lot of processed foods. We don't have anything, with dyes or MSG. Like we've cut out all of those things and try to eat as clean. So the choices, I mean, I don't care if he wants to get an orange or grapes or, the Simply Mills crackers or whatever we have, he can have whenever he wants. For bedtime, when they're younger, it was like, hey, we need to be going to bed. My kids did have a bedtime until they hit high school. And then it's like, you start to need to manage your own sleep and your own time management needs to be your responsibility. So I would make sure they get up, slowly fade that. They have their own alarms, they built in their own schedules and things like that. But when they're younger, it's like, hey, we're going to go to bed 8 o'clock, 8:30. It's 7:30, 8 o'clock. Do you want to have anything else? Do you want to have a snack before bed? Do you need to get a drink? All those things, kind of prompting them, which I'm sure you do, Joe, like as you say, you're doing movie night, like this is the time to have a snack and this is the time to eat. But if it's last minute and they want something, you're like, well, this is the option for you. You want a cheese stick or an apple or whatever. I don't see the harm in that. I would rather err on the side of giving them a snack than, like Nicole said, you can build some really disordered eating if you're like, no, you can't eat. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I don't try to limit food at night. If anything, it's the time. Like I try to find like their Xbox like I have is like it's automatically shuts off at 8 o'clock. They can't play at all. And my son, it took a while, but like he respects that so well, and he understands. Like he'll let his friends know, like, hey, I have 30 more minutes and I need to get off because he knows that Xbox is going to cut off whether or not he wants it or not. Like it's going to cut off. So it's a really great hard barrier that I have. And then after 8 o'clock, he just comes right down. He'll ask me like, um, can I have ice cream? Can I have I don't know why, but their favorite thing is eating dry noodles, like ramen, the pack of ramen,
I love that
and just
too.
eat. I loved it as a Boy Scout back when I was a teenager because like I was camping and stuff. But they'll literally ask me, "Can you crunch it? Because like crush it, the noodles up, put it in a bowl, and put the seasoning back on, and they'll eat it dry." I'm like, "Sure, no problem." One thing that I know we have started doing is like if they want something like late at night, like or even throughout the day, like we're like, all right, no, you guys go get it. You know where it's at, go get it. Because we want them to start building up resiliency and then also being more independent instead of always asking mom and dad for whatever they want. Just because like, we have 3 kids, it's a lot, and we're not always going to be able to get their stuff right away. So like if you want it, you can go get it. That's something that we started doing. But yeah, I mean like if they're watching a TV show or something and like I tell them like, hey, bedtime at 8:30. But they're watching a show and there's like 8 minutes left. I'm like, okay, finish the show. Then after the show, just go to bed. So, and they respect that really well. So
That's good. Yeah. I love to hear that he respects the shutting off of the Xbox. I wonder what people did before. I mean, I think I remember having clients where that was a like really big battle before you could put time limits on these things. It was always a battle for people. Okay, so we also had Alex was talking about supporting kids with higher behavior support needs, and then sometimes having higher expectations or boundaries firmer with her own kids, but sometimes it's the opposite. And Nicole recommended the book Power of Positive Parenting by Dr. Glenn Latham. That's an oldie but a goodie if you haven't read it. For me, when I look at that, of course, I always think about how to make it more affirming, but it's still like he does a good job of stating some like simple things that I think sometimes parents don't think about. And one of the things I was planning to probably do a little bit more with some of the videos I try to make, but I've kind of fallen off making them lately, is talking about things more contextually, because you see this, like I had a on this day video on TikTok, and it was about an issue I had with Taylor last year where he was hungry on the way to school and we were already running late, and it was like, do we get food or don't we? And it's so interesting to watch like all of the comments come in with such passion and like, this is what you have to do kind of deal. So I think there's a lot of situations where people will make a decision, especially as parents, based on just what comes up for them and their own learning histories, obviously, but it's not contextual in nature. It's not really looking at the full picture and making a decision based off of all of the variables as they need to be based. And I think there's things too, like we've been talking about today with the food. I don't think people really look at the really long game of, what could happen if a child isn't being given like the food that they probably really do need. They're more thinking like right in that moment. So anyway, that was just kind of a rambling for me, but does anyone else see that, like where people are trying to give these like black and white answers for parenting strategies, when in reality, there's usually a lot more that you have to, and it's exhausting to think about it, right? Like we can't just say like, do this, do this, do this. But in the long run, the more we can train people to be contextual and make informed decisions, the more joyful everything should be for everyone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. There really is no black and white to parenting. There's no manual, I think, like for a reason, because every child is their own unique little snowflake, and every parent has their learning history that they're going to bring to the table. My husband's fix for all that is he always just says, we'll see. Or if nothing crazy happens, that will happen. He always leaves himself an out for like every answer. And sometimes I'm like, hey, guess what? Sometimes the answer could just be no, or it could be yes. And like our kids are rational human beings that know that sometimes things change. So you don't need to always leave yourself an out. But like I can tell that that comes from his learning history or whatever. Like he is so non-committal. And I'm like, if we know the answer is no, let's just say no now. Why are we dragging that out? But yeah, I totally agree with you that like I think you have to take everything into consideration, like the kid, the environment, what yeah, I mean, I'm the type of person that thinks like if I make this decision, how is that going to affect things like 10 steps down the line? That's just like the joy of being in my brain. But yeah, not everyone certainly thinks that way.
Leslie, do you have anything to add?
I just think it's super important to set like what your hard no's are, kind of like what we do with ourselves, right? And our employment or whatever. It's like set your hard nose. So like my kids know, don't come to me and ask me in 5 minutes that I need to drive you over to Sarah's house. Like you need to tell me when you're planning this 3 days ago, last night, I kind of had a 24-hour rule. Like, I'm going to say no if you spring stuff on me to go do right now. I mean, I have three kids and I'm like, I can't just drop everything. My two older kids went to private school that was like 25 miles away. So there's
Wow.
already so much driving. They played, competitive sports. They did all the things. And before they started driving, I'm like, I need to plan. I'm very much a planner. If I know I have to take you here, I have to take you here. So like I would just look at what for your family, like when they're young like that, what are your hard no's and what sort of behaviors do you want to teach them to respect your time and your what you have to manage mentally, physically, etc. So whatever those expectations are. That was one example of it. My kids give me such a hard time about that. And like they just know like something will happen and I'll be like, oh, why didn't you tell me about that? And they're like, well, I didn't know until like an hour before and I knew you weren't going to take me. So I just arranged for Jimmy's mom to come pick me up. And I'm like, sweet. That's what
Yeah,
you need.
teaching some problem solving.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they've told me now that they're in their 20s, like that's a great skill to have and to develop some of that. And they need to be responsible. And if people aren't going to just drop their entire day to do something for you. If you need something from someone, you need to plan ahead and at least be respectful. And so it's, it branches out into a lot of other life skills. But for me, I was just like, no, I can't handle this. Like 5 minutes, I need to go here, I need to go there. We already have an out of town soccer schedule to manage. If you need me to take you somewhere, you need to tell me in advance.
Yeah. I think like piggybacking off of that or kind of like similar is we have like set family values and our number one family value is we don't lie. And we knew that that was like very important to us as a family, but that also meant that we as parents had to make it a safe space for our kids to come and talk to us about mistakes because we wouldn't be able to uphold that family value if our kids were afraid to talk to us and tell us that they had done something wrong because then they're going to be motivated to lie. But that was like our number one thing. And our kids will tell you like, what's our number one family rule? And it's that we don't lie. And then of course there's some other family values that we have too. And like everyone has kind of been given the framework to make decisions based on those values being like the number one thing.
I love that. So it sounds like one of the things that I hear everyone saying as well that I think is a little bit different from mainstream, I don't even know what to call it, like what you tend to see in a lot of parenting, again, based off learning history. It's not a judgment or anything. What each person is saying as we're talking is working with the child, like it's a collaborative effort and helping them learn, right? So explaining, well, it's going to be bedtime soon, or like Leslie was saying about I have all of these places I have to drive to. You can't just come and expect me to take you somewhere. Like giving the rationale and explaining the why behind things, and then also helping the child learn to either problem solve or make decisions now, like thinking about how many different skills that is building for this human that can carry over into adulthood, versus like if you're just kind of making your own decisions, not explaining why, and it's just more of that, like, I'm the parent, I said so, you must do everything that I say. That's not really teaching a whole lot of skills besides blind compliance, which we all know is not super beneficial. So I really love hearing everyone's different versions of sharing how they're parenting with collaboration with their children, and not just like, this is it, you have to do this.
Yeah, in retrospect, I did actually apply some science of behavior rules without even knowing it before I even knew. Because my kids are much older.
One of the things that I've struggled with recently, and that will just probably be what we end up finishing with, and of course, if anyone else wants to share parenting stuff, but one of the things I've struggled with is being that, you know, all the work we do here at Do Better and with the people I coach, the focus is on being affirming and honoring agency. Yeah, the world is not yet affirming or honoring of agency, especially at a certain age. I think it might even be easier when Taylor is a teenager, because there is more of an expectation for a older person to have that independence and like kind of do stuff and maybe even talk back and stuff like that. But when a person's younger, there's like not that expectation, and you get a whole lot of dirty looks or people having their perspectives and opinions informing their own judgments on the child and the parents for whatever they witness happening and whatnot. So that's been a struggle that I've been dealing with lately, is how to be affirming and like let Taylor be the human he was born to be, and not try to mold him into some like cookie cutter version of a child, but at the same time help him learn these neurotypical standards that are, you know, the pressure of society, and like, well, in this environment, you know, this masking basically needs to happen because otherwise you're going to get treated poorly. So I'm just curious if any of you have encountered that, and if you have any suggestions.
I have a lot of thoughts about that myself. So my daughter is going to be 15, and she just officially got an autism diagnosis. And I never really thought she was autistic until she was much older, and she had some traits that I thought were just like young person traits that were going to go away. But she's always been the type to ask these questions of like, why do I have to do such and such? Like, why does it matter if my clothes match, or why does it matter if whatever? And most of the time we're able to give answers like, I don't care if your clothes match. You know, I don't care if other people think your clothes match or whatever. But to participate in society, you have to have good hygiene, you know? So like you have to be clean, you have to be whatever. And we might get judged as your parents if you don't have matching clothes or you don't have whatever, but that's just, you know, kind of like their problem. But at the end of the day, like the more you start peeling this back and peeling this back, we're all just completely socialized. Everything that we think we have to do is just because some other person besides us got together and decided that that is what we do. That's why we face forward in elevators. That's why we do all the things that we do. And there's not necessarily a good reason for any of it. So in a way, whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, we're all masking at some point in our lives because we're not doing exactly what we want to be doing, exactly when we want to be doing it. And I have a hard time answering that question when she asks these really good questions, because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know at what point we need to fall in line with society, and at what point we should just be like, I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to do what I want to do. But I know that a hard boundary is we don't infringe on others. We don't make them uncomfortable. We don't harm them. And past that, I have a really hard time telling you like where the like hard stopping line is on where you need to be doing what everyone else says you want to do. And that's probably why we homeschool, because like I just can't put up with arbitrary rules in school systems. I just can't do it.
I love that, Nicole. Thanks for sharing. Leslie or Joe?
Yeah, I almost think maybe it's almost easier with Noah having a diagnosis because he does get some of that grace. And I feel like maybe, you know, Taylor's his expectations pretty high to not show any sort of deviation from what's expected. Like we come in class and we sit on our bottom and we put our feet on the floor and da da da. Well, what if you're a kid that wants to tuck your leg under your other leg, or you need a stability ball under your feet, or you need this
How
or
many
that?
adults sit like that, right?
I
Like,
know.
I do
I mean,
not.
I do. So that's what I think of that all the time. All the fidgets people do that to kind of help, self-regulate. And I think it may be almost harder for him than a kid that just does get some leeway, like Noah, to be different. It's more obvious that he's different and he has a reason why that society accepts. And Taylor just growing into his own human body self isn't enough for, like, no, that's not enough. You need to do what we say because we say. And so sadly, I mean, that you're doing the best job you can to explain that to him, that obviously he's going to be respectful and kind and show these things, but if he wanted to do something that's off norm, if he wanted to sit on the floor crisscross, or he wanted to do this, and the teacher, no, we sit in our chair, I mean, just teaching him to advocate for himself the best he can. Well, I focus better if I sit crisscross on the floor, and I mean, those are just, it's going to be exhausting. It's exhausting, sadly.
Yep.
All I can do is empathize, I guess. I have no solution.
Thanks, Leslie. Joe, I feel like you've been navigating this a bit recently.
Yeah,
Maybe not
just
super recently, but in the last few months.
yeah, just figuring out like how to best like help allow them to be who they are, but also giving them like just other perspectives. Like, okay, so hey, buddy, I know you're doing this. This is who you are. You like doing this, but like this is how other people view, and this is what that kind of what that behavior kind of you know just what other people think the behavior means, and just tell them like, hey, it's okay, like, you know, you can't, I mean, like, it's hard for me because like, yeah, it's like also like allowing him to be who he is, but also teaching him like the why other people don't do it, or like what um society thinks it means.
Mhm.
It's hard. I mean, but also just advocating, like letting him know, like, hey, if you want to do that, that makes you feel, regulated, that makes you feel good, then that's fine. Um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a fine line, and it's always, um, it's tough to always have the answers, or decide what to do best, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, it totally does. I'm looking forward to the point. I don't know what age. I feel like it could be now, but it's harder to where the self-advocacy can come in. I have a lot of friends who are adults, and the freedom that they have experienced, that conferences and different places are so much more open now, with allowing people to fidget or do whatever they need to do. And if there's not, they feel more empowered to advocate for themselves and get what they need. And I long for the day when that could just be the case for children too. But in the meantime, having children, whether they have a diagnosis or not, but they know what their needs are, and being able to advocate for those needs, I think is super important. But I don't know. It seems like at this age, it's just this weird age. He's almost 9. He's in 3rd grade, where there's still just such a big expectation of like kids are seen and not heard, and you just fall in line and you do whatever the adults are telling you to do. And it's hard to like help him navigate that when I don't believe it. It's not something I think is important. But one thing that I did find that was super helpful though, in like the recent stuff we've been dealing with, is Go Zen. I've talked about that quite a bit. The Go Zen website, they have a whole section on negativity because that's one of the things that has been a struggle lately is just constantly finding the negative in things. And adults do this too. You know, we all have a friend or two, or maybe even ourselves at certain points where we're just so focused on the negative. And they have an amazing section on negativity in there that goes through research in a way that obviously is connecting for kids. But then they have links to the articles for the parents or adults to read as well if you want to understand it better. And it talks about the neurology behind it and how, you know, even though we're basically programmed as humans to naturally find the negative, right? It's survival. It's how we do a threat assessment and then we protect ourselves. And we can, through intentionality, focus on the positive and create new habits and new pathways and essentially change our neurology and why that's important and blah, blah, blah. So going back to like Nicole, what you were talking about, you know, having certain values and things like that. I mean, I don't want to force my value on him, but I would hope that most humans would like to live a joyful life. That it's not like, even though it's for protection from a negativity standpoint, that it just feels better to be focusing on the positive than the negative. So that was super helpful going through that section with him and having any of these types of things where it's like, okay, you need to fall in line. It is a lot easier when you can find actual rationales for like how it truly makes it a better human experience for that person, as opposed to just, you need to fall in line because society. It's like capitalism. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Anyone have any closing thoughts or things they wanted to talk about with parenting that we didn't get to? I think that's such a great topic. Thanks, Joe, for coming up with this.
No problem. No problem. Just something that's been on my mind. So I have a lot of things on my mind. Sometimes there's a lot going on up there, and that's like, okay, I don't have I get decision fatigue, and like sometimes like it's just too much. But
Yeah.
But I
I
don't
wonder if
have
I
anything.
when you said decision fatigue, now I'm like, I wonder if I could have ChatGPT come up with a formula. And then you can just be like, boom, and then you don't have decision fatigue. I'm going to work on that. Nicole or
Yeah.
Leslie? Oh, sorry, Joe. What were you going to say?
No, I like that, and it's almost like I've been thinking about that too. It's like sometimes like I just need to like just make a decision and don't care about like all the other factors. And maybe it would be more freeing if I do that. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, I think we could set that as our next topic. So in February, maybe we can talk a little bit more. Because Nicole, you brought that up too, like this idea of seeing out into the future and just kind of just being analytical and all of that kind of stuff. So maybe we can chat about that in February. Carry on. All right. Nicole, Leslie, I know Alex, you've been in the chat. Any last thoughts before we close out? Thank you everyone for your active engagement. It's always nice to have multiple perspectives and not just Joe and I, even though I love talking myself and with Joe. It's super helpful to have multiple people.
I agree. I agree.
All right. Well, hopefully I will get this up. I kind of fell behind on getting things loaded, but for those of you who are listening and it's around when we publish this podcast, we have some great events coming up with Do Better. So make sure to check out our website and see the full calendar, and all the events should be live by the 31st for the year. So if you haven't checked out our calendar lately, make sure to give it a look.
Now go.
Are you ready to close us out, Joe? Oh.
Yep. No, I see. It's all right. All right. Go forth and do better, people.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.